American Top 40.
AT40's heard coast to coast and around the world on great radio stations like WCOR, Lebanon, Tennessee, WCOD, Hyannis, Massachusetts, and WCBM, Baltimore. At number 35, a debut tune by the Eagles, Take It Easy. The Eagles, a four-man group based in Los Angeles, and Take It Easy, a debut song at number 35 on AT40. Okay, let's get on with part 2 of American Top 40. I'm Casey Kasem, and the countdown rolls on.
Number 27.
Here's a second hit song for a group called Eagles. Don Henley from Gilmer, Texas, Bernie Layden from Minneapolis, Minnesota, Randy Meisner from Scotts Bluff, Nebraska, and Glenn Fry from Detroit, Michigan. At number 27, they move up 3 this week in their third week on American Top 40. Eagles, Witchy Woman. The 27th best-selling song in the USA.
Casey's Coast to Coast.
This is Casey Kasem in Hollywood, and now I have the brand new number 1 song in the nation by a superstar group who are famous for their easygoing, laid-back image, but who say they owe their huge success to constantly fighting and feuding as soon as they step off stage. According to the 5 members of this group, whenever they step out of the spotlight, the smiles fade and the fighting begins. Lead guitarist Glenn Fry explained the group's Jekyll and Hyde personality to Rolling Stone magazine. He said, "We're the Oakland A's of rock and roll. On the field, we can't be beat. But in the clubhouse, well, that's another story. We're completely different people. We rarely even hang out together." End of quote. The other group members agreed with Glenn and explained that it's the pressures of the enormous success they've had and of trying to maintain that success that creates friction and keeps them fighting all the time. But they say the fighting has a positive side too, because it keeps their musical instincts sharp and creative. And the Eagles say turning out good music makes all the fussing and fighting worthwhile. This week, they've got the most popular song in America. At number 1, here are the Eagles with Hotel California. And there you have it, the most popular song in the nation. At number 1 for the week ending May 7th, 1977, the Eagles with Hotel California. You just heard the most popular songs in the nation on American Top 40. AT40 produced and distributed by Watermark Incorporated. My producer is Nikki Wine. I'm Casey Kasem. Join me next week, and again, we'll count down the 40 biggest hits in the nation. Till then, keep your feet in the ground and keep reaching for the stars.
American Top 40.
Well, now our AT40 Extra by one of the most successful and famous rock groups of the 70s. A California quintet who told us that immediately before every concert they give, they make a point of walking through the crowd and talking with their fans. They say playing to huge arenas of 20, 40, or 50,000 people can isolate performers. And they feel that it's important to them and to their music to stay in touch with their fans, to have a feeling for the mood and interests of the people they're playing for. So, about 20 minutes before the show begins, they wander out to the refreshment stand, pick up a hot dog and a soft drink, and then cruise through the crowd talking with the people. And here's the big surprise. They tell us that in spite of their huge success, and that includes the dozens of big magazine covers that have featured their famous faces, they're almost never recognized. So, next time you go to a concert starring the Eagles, be sure to check out the faces around the hot dog stand. You might just spot one of them. As an AT40 Extra now, here are the Eagles with their 1976 smash, Take It to the Limit. An American Top 40 Extra by the Eagles. Take it to the limit.
American Top 40.
What happens when antagonism builds up between America's leading rock magazine and one of the biggest supergroups in the business? Well, what happens is that they play a softball game that'll cost the loser $5,000. The challenge was thrown out by the supergroup The Eagles to Rolling Stone magazine. The Eagles were fed up with the bad reviews they'd been getting on the pages of Rolling Stone. One reviewer had said, quote, "The Eagles have a performance problem. They strike no rock and roll poses. If anything, they loiter." Another Rolling Stone reviewer said, "I never liked the Eagles very much, and Joe Walsh, their new lead guitarist, appeals even less." So the Eagles, looking for revenge, issued their challenge. Rolling Stone accepted, and the teams took to the ball diamond. With Don Henley pitching for the Eagles, the band took an early lead, 3-0. And at the last out, the score was Eagles 15, Rolling Stone magazine 8. During the game, the music reviewer who had written that the Eagles have a performance problem committed 2 errors. prompting singer-guitarist Glenn Frey to point out that it was the writer who had the performance problem. This week, the Slugging Eagles have another hit. Last week, it was number 1. Here's Heartache Tonight at number 5 in the countdown. Last week, that was a number 1 song in the USA. This week, it falls to number 5. The Eagles and Heartache Tonight. The 4 biggies are coming right up.
Casey's Coast to Coast.
Now on American Top 40, we're up to the latest hit single by the American supergroup whose lead guitarist may well be the king of hotel room destruction. You know, life on the road can be hard on a rock band, and some musicians take out their frustrations in a very destructive way. After a show, when they get back to their hotels, they demolish a room. It's not a very smart way to let off steam, but a number of bands do it. And they all understand that they have to pay for whatever damage they cause. In the case of the Eagles' lead guitarist, Joe Walsh, those payments tend to be pretty stiff. In the course of a single evening, Joe Walsh has been known to throw all the furniture in his room into the hotel's pool, taking care not to hit any swimmers. The Eagles' third week at number 8 on American Top 40 with I Can't Tell You Why. 7 big ones to number 1, and we're counting them down.
Casey's Coast to Coast.
Now we're up to a solo hit by a former member of a supergroup who were originally brought together as Linda Ronstadt's backup band, but they never played a note behind her. The story begins back in 1971. Linda Ronstadt's manager was looking for the best backup group possible to strengthen Linda's act both on stage and in the studio. So he put together 4 very accomplished musicians. They had all played with Linda before, but never just the 4 of them as a group. So they started rehearsing and learning Linda's material. And did they sound good? To Linda, it looked like her search for a top-notch band was over. Except for one thing. These 4 men played so well and felt so good together that they decided to go out on their own. Well, Linda was sorry to see her newfound band leave. She hadn't even cut 1 record or given 1 concert with them. But she understood. The following year, in the summer of 1972, the new group's first single release, Take It Easy, went to number 12. Then a stream of hits followed, including 5 number 1s. Best of My Love, One of These Nights, New Kid in Town, Hotel California, and Heartache Tonight. Plus multi-million selling platinum albums and sold-out concert tours that firmly established the Eagles as one of the biggest supergroups of the 1970s. A former member of the Eagles is in the countdown this week. He's a man who went from almost being in Linda Ronstadt's permanent backup band to a supergroup to now becoming a solo act. Glenn Frey at number 35 with Sexy Girl. Falling 11 notches this week to 35 in our countdown. 9th week in the survey. Glenn Frey and Sexy Girl as the countdown continues.
Casey's Coast to Coast.
Now we're up to a solo hit by a singer from one of the most successful groups in pop history. He's Don Henley, who was the drummer, one of the singers, and one of the songwriters for the Eagles. The Eagles were a supergroup who broke up at the end of 1981 during what some would say was the height of their career. Many supergroups have broken up at their pinnacle, and recently Don Henley offered writer Dennis Hunt his theory as to why some super successful bands break up. Quote, "With the Eagles, you would have to deal with that old issue of getting everybody equally represented on an album. We had 5 chiefs and no Indians. It was a struggle to get everyone satisfied, especially the farther we went. But that's what eventually breaks up every band, isn't it?" Don Henley also suggests why a few supergroups have managed not to break up. In some bands, he says, you get to the point where one is satisfied with just playing a particular role. That's why the Rolling Stones have stayed together so long. The other 3 guys are satisfied with letting Mick Jagger and Keith Richards run things. End of quote. That's former Eagle Don Henley.
The hits from coast to coast to coast.
On American Top 40, I'm Casey Kasem. Well, now we're up to the latest solo hit from a man who used to be a member of one of the top bands of the 70s. Literally an all-star band. A band that has managed to send more solo acts onto the chart than any other group. Before they broke up in 1981, they became famous for creating that distinctive Southern California sound. the Eagles. Now, the first three Eagles to leave the nest were Joe Walsh, Randy Meisner, and Don Felder. They each hit the pop singles chart. The next two Eagles to launch solo careers have been the most successful. And that's no surprise, considering they sang lead on most of the band's hits. There's the man whose biggest solo smash was The Heat Is On. That's Glenn Frey. And the man who hit number 3 with the song Dirty Laundry, Don Henley. If you've been keeping track, that's 5 Eagles to hit the chart solo. Well, now we have a 6th. He's the former Eagles bass player who sang on their hit I Can't Tell You Why. And that makes 6 solo acts the Eagles have sent out of the pop chart, an all-time record. Now, here is that latest solo Eagle soaring 6 notches to number 25. Timothy B. Schmidt with Boys Night Out. Boys Night Out, Timothy B. Schmidt looking for trouble. He moves up 6 notches to number 25. First top 40 solo hit for the 40-year-old former Eagle. 24 big ones to number 1 as the countdown rocks on.
Hits from coast to coast.
I'm Casey Kasem, and we're getting closer and closer to the number 1 song of 1996. But first, a countdown extra. The number 1 song of 1995.